What's up, Taiwan? I'm Eric Gao, bringing you the latest news from Taipei. Taiwan is bracing for a typhoon, one that's forecast to make a rare direct hit on the west coast, where about 90% of the country's population lives. Winds are expected to be over 220 kilometers an hour, and officials are already warning people to be vigilant. Now, our reporter Joyce Sun is live in Taipei with more details. Joyce, what's the latest?
That's right, Eric. A land warning has been issued in anticipation of Typhoon Krathon making landfall. And as you mentioned, it's expected to impact Taiwan's densely populated western coast, which is unusual. The country is no stranger to typhoons, but they usually affect the mountain areas in the east where much fewer people live. The latest typhoon to hit, Typhoon Kaohsiung, in July, packed sustained winds peaking at 230 kilometers per hour and killed at least 11 people. Officials this time warning people to stay particularly vigilant as winds are expected to be just as strong. At the moment, it's just been occasional drizzles here in the capital, which is not directly in the path of the storm. Further south, preparations are underway to bear the brunt of it. Bracing for Typhoon Krathon with potential winds of over 220 kilometers per hour. It's expected to hit this major port city, Kaohsiung, in less than 48 hours. From here, it will continue moving in a northwest direction, likely to bring torrential rains across Taiwan's densely populated west coast. A land warning has been raised across much of southern Taiwan to alert of possible threats to people's lives and property. This follows a sea warning issued for the waters off the southern coast.
这一次在西半部的沿岸也会有很大的风力出现的机会，所以整个台湾大概都要注意风的状况。
Some transport links already planning to suspend services during the typhoon's arrival.
所以我们10月1号、10月2号会停航。
Meanwhile, residents here are stocking up on food supplies ahead of the storm. Many were met with high prices amid the buying frenzy.
那个本来是4包100，现在变成3包100，都贵很多。
The typhoon is forecast to be a Category 4 storm, and preparations are underway across the nation to mitigate as much damage as possible. Authorities have said that over 2,200 soldiers and 1,000 rubber boats are on standby across Taiwan to help people evacuate amid what's expected to be several feet of rain in the coming days. Eric?
Yeah, we'll be keeping a close eye on the typhoon. Thank you, Joyce, for that update. That was Joyce Sun live for us in Taipei. And remember, avoid heading out to the mountains or to the coast during the storm. Now, the devastation caused by Hurricane Helene in the U.S. has left over 100 people dead in the southeastern United States. Hurricane Helene has disrupted critical infrastructure in 6 states on the East Coast. One of the worst hit is North Carolina, where a massive cleanup effort has started. The hurricane destroyed roads and bridges and thousands of homes and businesses. Torrential rainfall from the storm caused widespread flooding from the Gulf Coast of Florida to as far north as Virginia. Estimates suggest the damage caused by the hurricane could range between $15 billion to $100 billion US dollars, making it one of the costliest storms to ever hit the United States. U.S. President Joe Biden has announced new defense support for Taiwan. Biden has approved $567 million US dollars in new equipment, services, and training, the highest amount of such funding on record. Now, Beijing has condemned Washington's continued sale of weapons to Taipei, and Taiwan has been complaining about a growing backlog of delayed weapons deliveries from the U.S. Taiwan has responded to China's comments at the UN General Assembly that a UN resolution from decades ago gives Beijing the right to represent Taiwan in the global body.
这一决议彻底解决了包括台湾在内全中国在联合国的代表权问题，明确不存在2个中国。 不存在一中一台。
联大第2758号决议的内容，既未提到台湾，也没有确认台湾是中华人民共和国的一部分，更未授权中华人民共和国在联合国代表台湾。外交部要求中国停止误导国际视听。
UN Resolution 2758 was passed unanimously by the General Assembly in 1971. It switched representation for China's seat at the organization from the Republic of China, that's Taiwan's official name, to the People's Republic of China, or PRC. Beijing has used that resolution in recent years to justify blocking Taiwan's participation at UN bodies, such as the World Health Organization and in international sporting competitions, where Taiwan is usually required to participate under the name Chinese Taipei. For more on China's use of UN Resolution 2758 to prevent Taiwan's participation in the organization, our reporter Chris Gorn spoke with Professor In Chong of the National University of Singapore.
Has China always emphasized UN Resolution 2758 to justify its Taiwan claims, or has this ramped up over time?
So the use of UN Resolution 2758 to lay claim to Taiwan is a relatively new development. So previously, the PRC had just laid claim to Taiwan based on history and so on and so forth. There was some reluctance to use it in previous periods because the resolution itself has no language referring to Taiwan. It is only about the representation of the China seat at the United Nations. So the PRC, I think, is trying to create some sort of legal basis for its claim within international law, within the body of international law. But it could open the door for lots of other reinterpretations of lots of other things by other actors. That could create a lot more messiness that I'm not sure Beijing has fully anticipated.
Has China's interpretation of the resolution been persuasive to other countries in the world?
So states that pay attention to the issue, they do, and they're saying that this is a distortion of what is actually in the text. Now, states that don't pay attention to cross-strait issues, and there are many of them, that would be most states in the world, I don't think they've really said stuff either way. There have been some legislatures, like the one in the Netherlands and Australia, have been pushing back through their own resolutions. And the US, I think in Congress, there is some move in that direction.
What about in Taiwan's domestic politics? How do the different political parties view this issue?
So within the context of Taiwan, the Democratic Progressive Party has been calling for a resolution that basically rejects the PRC claim. The KMT has been emphasizing that they would only go along with something like that if the resolution includes language about readmitting the Republic of China into the United Nations. The ROC is Taiwan's official country name. I guess this part of the debate within Taiwan is, how and what to enter the United Nations as, whether it's Taiwan, Republic of China, parenthesis Taiwan.
Is this purely a cross-strait issue, or do you see something more going on here?
I mean, the back and forth is, on the one hand, a cross-strait issue, but it does, I think, also highlight Beijing's effort to reinterpret a whole bunch of other international agreements. This includes UNCLOS, the United Nations Convention of the Law of the Sea, where it rejected the arbitral tribunal that was convened under Annex 7, and then also the Sino-British Joint Declaration on Hong Kong. So the issue for the PRC is if they create a track record of reinterpreting texts outside of their original meaning, that could create larger commitment problems for them when they make a promise. Others would be more likely to second guess or to wonder whether Beijing will keep to whatever they've said.
That was Professor In Chong from the National University of Singapore. A Kaohsiung City Councilor has been arrested for alleged corruption. Police had raided the offices of Huang Shaoting of the opposition Kuomintang last Thursday, only to discover that he had flown to China just hours before. In a statement, Huang said the trip had previously been scheduled, but he did not provide a return date. Police were waiting for him at the airport when he returned to Taiwan on Sunday. Prosecutors allege that Huang embezzled public funds intended for his assistance, and they want him held incommunicado, saying he may be a flight risk. Japan's new Prime Minister, Ishiba Shigeru, plans to call a snap election for October 27th, and that's according to Japanese broadcaster NHK. Following his victory as leader of Japan's ruling Liberal Democrat Party, Ishiba said he wanted an election as soon as possible to secure his mandate as Prime Minister. He replaces outgoing PM Kishida Fumio, who resigned following a corruption scandal and increasing unpopularity with voters. Israel is continuing to launch airstrikes across Lebanon as Beirut says it is dealing with a significant humanitarian crisis 2 weeks into the escalated conflict between Hezbollah and Israel. As Rosie Graninger reports, international leaders are calling for diplomatic solutions as the war opens up on a third front, Yemen.
Smoke billows over Lebanon as Israel continues its airstrike assault against militant group Hezbollah. Heavy bombing in the south, north, east and the capital Beirut has left the country struggling with a major humanitarian crisis. Over 1,000 people have been killed, more than 6,000 wounded, and up to 1 million displaced and living on the streets. In an emergency cabinet meeting, Lebanon's caretaker Prime Minister Najib Mikati pressed for a diplomatic solution, namely the implementation of the UN's 2006 Security Council Resolution 1701, which calls for a full cessation of hostilities between Hezbollah and Israel.
فبالتالي خلينا نوفر الدماء ونوفر اللي عم بيصير ونروح على تطبيق الاتفاق، لانه نحن لبنان لا يزال يؤمن بالمجتمع الدولي، يؤمن بالشرعيه الدوليه، يؤمن بالامم المتحده، بوقت غيرنا كلياته لا يؤمن الا بشريعه الغاب وشريعه القوي اللي عم تاكل الحق للضعيف.
But Israel has vowed to continue targeting suspected Hezbollah infrastructure with the aim of disarming the militant group. They believe this would allow Israelis evacuated from their homes along the border with Lebanon to return home. By fighting Hezbollah, which is allied with Hamas in Gaza, Israel hopes to pressure the Palestinian militants in the enclave to return the hostages they took nearly a year ago.
אנחנו נחושים להמשיך להכות באויבינו, להשיב לבתיהם את תושבינו ולהחזיר את כל חטופינו. אנחנו לא שוכחים אותם לרגע.
Hezbollah is not deterred, despite Israeli airstrikes delivering serious blows to its command ranks. The group's longtime leader Hassan Nasrallah was killed in a target strike in Beirut. The damage from that hit so extensive it took 2 days to locate his body. Nasrallah was an influential figure in the Middle East, with close personal ties to Iran. There are concerns that his assassination could draw that country into the conflict.
از نظر ما آمریکا شریک این جنایت هست و به هیچ وجه نمیتونه خودش رو جدا بکنه از این واقعیت و مسلماً خون شهدای این حادثه بی پاسخ نخواهد موند و ما حتما در کنار لبنان خواهیم ایستاد.
Along with other world leaders, US President Joe Biden has renewed his call for de-escalation. He is again set to speak to Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to urge a diplomatic solution and step back from risking all-out war in the region.
We really have to avoid it. We've already taken precautions relative to our embassies and personnel who want to leave, but we're not there yet, but we're working like hell with the French and many others.
But as international powers plead for calm, the conflict has opened up on a third front in Yemen, with Israel striking a power plant and port in the country in response to a missile attack by the Iranian-backed Houthis. The growing exchange of fire, leaving the calls for peace, seemingly falling on deaf ears. James Lin and Rosie Greninger for TaiwanPlus.
Thank you for watching What's Up Taiwan. You can visit the TaiwanPlus website or follow our social media for more stories from Taiwan and around the world. Finally, we leave you with images of Typhoon Krathon's effects already being felt along Taiwan's coast. I'm Eric Gao. Take care, and we'll see you next time.
For more stories from Taiwan and around the world, download the TaiwanPlus app.